I feel like Gensokyo like kind of does fit this pretty nicely because like, well, it is mostly stuck in like this pre-industrial era, but I suppose like a bit of early 20th century works pretty well in this setting as well.
That's something that a lot of modern cartoon shows kind of get criticized for, is having overly complex designs that are really hard to animate, so episodes take longer to come out, they're more expensive to produce, higher chance of the show being canceled. So especially when you're looking at an indie project, you really got to have a good understanding of what you can do over a long period of time to make sure you can still finish the project.
Yeah, and around the same time, I also saw an art of Murasa, also tagged as Touhou, and I was like, okay, so the sailor and the clown, they're both Touhou. Just, what is this Touhou?
Exactly. It's like, wait, these two things are in the same... What's going on? Type online what game to start with, and everyone and their mom says, the Touhou 6, Embodiment of Scarlet Devil. So I try it, and I'm like, wow, this game sucks. I hate Touhou. So yeah. I didn't play any other games for a little while after that.
I spent like basically 22 hours programming, not like straight, with a little break in between.
Hello, and welcome to the 9th issue of the Hifuu Community Club. On this show, as you know, we bring on the talented hands and minds of the Touhou community to talk about some of their greatest works. Calling in for the month of September is the game designer, illustrator, and composer, Barukowo. Would you like to go and introduce yourself and your creative works?
Hello, I'm Barukowo. As introduced, I am an artist, composer, and game developer. I have a doujin circle, MagpieTeahouse. It's like where we make games. And I also have my SoundCloud page where I post music. It's both soundtrack for the games, Touhou arranges, and some of my original tunes as well.
All right, thanks for joining us. So about a year and a half ago, you created MagpieTeahouse, as you mentioned, a Western doujin circle focused on making video games. Tell us a little bit about your history with game development, and specifically your desire to make a Touhou doujin circle.
Well, I did have a desire to make games pretty much since I was a kid. It was something that I was always found fascinating, I suppose, like making your own games and coming up with your own stories and characters. I didn't really have tools when I was a kid or even a teenager, but originally I did get a copy of Game Maker Studio, and I tried tweaking with it, but nothing really impressive came out. Just some kind of prototype stuff. The best I managed to do is some a really simple side scroller, and that's about it. But well, I guess the topic still kind of was interesting to me. So what eventually led me to making my first Touhou fan game, Subterranean Detectives and Satori, was of course the Detective Satori manga. Ever since it started, the concept of Satori as the detective kind of I found it really interesting, and it just wouldn't leave my mind. And from the very start, I was thinking how interesting it would be to have a point-and-click adventure game featuring Satori as the detective. For whatever reason, it just seemed like a really neat idea. Well, I didn't really take it seriously for quite a long time because obviously, I can't program, can't code. It's a lot of effort to make a game, so yeah, not for me. The idea didn't leave my head, so I tried to draw a mock-up for a game, just design a menu, design some screens based around the events that happened in the manga, and I posted it in one of the Discord servers I'm in, dedicated to Touhou, and a lot of people were actually really they found the idea interesting, and they were saying that if it were a real game, they would really like to play it. And this kind of encouraged me to try and actually make a game. I thought maybe it's not that hard. So yeah, I dug up my copy of Game Maker and tried to start making a prototype. It was summer of 2020. It was in June. So I spent the summer making the prototype. It was just a very basic thing just to figure out how the controls work, how to make like menus, inventory, and all this stuff. And about somewhere around August, I had finished this prototype and started working on the game itself in September. So that's pretty much the beginning of MagpieTeahouse as it is.
And it really was a good idea to make this game sort of a point-and-click adventure game based on Foul Detective Satori. There are so many potentials for storytelling elements and gameplay elements from that manga, and definitely following that kind of classic point-and-click style used in older games like Monkey Island, or even more recent games like the Deponia series by Daedalus. Subterranean Detectives really captures that old feeling really well, not only just in the way that it plays out, but also in the art style of it and everything. It's got just a really rich kind of old-timey feel, both in the music and in the art. And it really brings to life not only the aesthetics of those old games, but the aesthetics of Foul Detective Satori. So yeah, it was a really good idea, and I think it was really well executed as well.
Thank you so much. It really warms my heart to hear people praise the game. Well, yeah, you mentioned the Deponia series. Yeah, it was one of the games that I used to play back when, can't really remember the year, but yeah. So this game, and also there was an old game, a point-and-click adventure game. It's also like a series called Siberia, about like a journalist looking for an inventor who got lost somewhere on the way to find basically a lost island.
I see.
Yeah, so yeah, basically this game was also a big inspiration to me, both kind of visually because it has this clockwork aesthetic to it. And yeah, as you mentioned, the old-timey aesthetic, I am kind of a big fan of this old-timey things, just the aesthetic of maybe early 20th century, the pre-war period and interwar period. I don't know, really like the visuals of it. So that is kind of the things that I try. I feel like Gensokyo kind of does fit this pretty nicely because it is mostly stuck in this pre-industrial era, but I suppose a bit of early 20th century works pretty well in this setting as well.
Yeah, and I definitely think it's also a really neat pairing for the Subterranean Animism cast, because you kind of get a lot of different styles and aesthetics in different groups of characters throughout Gensokyo. For instance, with the Scarlet Devil cast, you get this very sort of gothic medieval feeling, whereas with other characters, in Hell, you get a lot of really even more modern or even cyberpunk aesthetics. So having this sort of French Rococo style and mixed in with a little bit of steampunk for the Temple of the Earth and Spirits was really interesting to me, because I don't see a lot of depictions of that mansion as anything other than the traditional Gothic style, which I think we kind of already get into with Scarlet Devil. So I think going for that more old-timey sort of interwar period really, really fits, and it makes it stand out from other areas and locations from other games. So I think it was a really good choice.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and another I don't remember if I mentioned it in anywhere, but yeah, another inspiration for this was also Agatha Christie's Poirot series. I was a big fan of this the TV series starring David Suchet. So yeah, it also definitely was an inspiration, at least aesthetic wise.
Well, I think that also works really well because Zune is also a big fan of the works of Agatha Christie. So
yeah, I suppose.
So yeah, with that kind of steampunk noir kind of motif, which shows up a lot in your artworks, not just in Subterranean Detectives, but also in a lot of your other music and a lot of your art as well. What about this art style specifically speaks to you?
Well, to be honest, I'm not even sure. I sometimes ask myself, why exactly I like this kind of aesthetic, this kind of theme, and I don't have an answer. Just something resonates in it with me, I guess. So yeah, it is actually a question that I do ask myself from time to time, and still. No answer to
Yeah,
this.
sometimes you just like what you like. Sometimes you find certain eras of things very beautiful. I like, for instance, whenever I visit the local art museum, the Nelson Atkins, I'm always really drawn to the Gujarati art exhibits. I'm not sure why, but
Hmm.
something about that sort of pre-colonialist native art from India is really like speaks to me. I don't know why. It's not philosophical, it's not religious, it's not a historical connection. I something about it's just very beautiful to me. I love depictions of their mythological creatures. I love just the artworks of their shrines, their architecture, their various different methods of painting and cloth weaving. It's so beautiful, and I have no idea why.
Yeah, I definitely can understand it. Yeah, I mean, sometimes just like arts speaks to you, I guess. So you just vibe with it, and that's enough of an
Yeah.
explanation, I suppose.
So yeah, you have worked a couple of times on the Touhou Game Jam with 2 entries so far. What are some of the difficulties and unique challenges you face when making a game for a game jam as opposed to just on your own time?
Well, it's definitely time restriction to begin with, because like when you have like such limited time, like 3 or 4 days, you like have to work really fast and figure out stuff fast, and it like it can be kind of stressful, but at the same time, it's like pretty exciting. You know, like this excite. It's good to have some excitement in your life, like
For
this.
sure.
Yeah, and also like I have worked on gems like in different roles, because like during one like our first gem game, I was working with my programmer friend who like he also helped me out with the Satori game a little bit. Like he just gave some advice and like technical tips. Yeah, so he was doing the programming part, and I was doing just art and music. So yeah, I mean it did work pretty well. Like it did go well. I don't really like remember any like kind of issues or anything like this. We managed to like pretty much get done everything on time. Yeah, but the second time we had a slightly bigger team, but yeah, sadly our programmer he got sick right before the jam, so he tried to push through, but well he couldn't, so I had to step in programming.
Oh,
Yeah, it was like basically I asked for an extra day since like it was like such an unforeseen circumstances. So yeah, I spent like basically 22 hours programming, not like straight with a little break in between, but still like after 22 hours, it was like 7 a.m. I emerged from programming feeling well. It was an interesting feeling, but it wasn't a bad feeling. It was actually, as I said, it was exciting. It was really interesting experience like this.
yeah, that sounds like a really unique experience that you wouldn't really get in pretty much any other circumstance. But it's nice to
Yeah.
hear that you're able to tough it out through it, even with the with like such unforeseen circumstances, because that can really happen in game jams when you're so restricted. You know, in the production of a longer game over several months, you know, a programmer getting sick for 2 or 3 days may cause a slight delay, but it won't be a super big issue. But when your total amount of time is 2 or 3 days, it's a much bigger of an impact. So
Yeah. So well, but it all went well. So that's what matters.
for sure. So on the itch.io page for Reach for the Moon Immortal Smoke, which was your entry for Game Jam 7, there are two versions of the game that are on the site, both the one submitted for the Game Jam and a post-game patch. What are some of the changes that you felt necessary to make in a post-game patch after the Game Jam was over?
Oh well, those were just like some things that like we couldn't find time to fit, like title cards for the screens, like the names of the stages that pop up. Originally, it was just like some text over the screen and like basically no fancy effects. So we put those title cards at the beginning of each stage. I slightly extended the music for the second stage, so it like because originally it like the second stage turned out to be a little bit longer than the length of the music. Well, just so yeah, I guess just some kind of like mm, how's it usually called, quality of life updates, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, but other than that, it's pretty much. Yeah, oh yeah, and also like some missing sound effects, I suppose.
Oh, okay. That would definitely be good for a patch then. So another medium that you're pretty well known for is that of animation and illustration, which you also do pretty well in the games that you make. You made the sprite animation for Subterranean Detectives, and it sort of has this kind of cartoony and round style for the characters and their faces and their bodies. How did you develop this kind of style of animation?
Well, I guess this style kind of like developed naturally, I suppose, over time. Like my inspiration for originally for this style was like both Western animation, like Western cartoons, and also like with some anime mixed in, and like I guess eventually just like came out the way it is. Yeah. So yeah. Also, partially, I feel like it was maybe a little bit inspired by the art style of game Don't Starve. I mean,
Oh, I
mostly
can see
like
that.
probably you could probably see it like in Satori's sprite, probably
Yeah.
like a bit of inspiration. So yeah, and basically it's kind of also like what would be like kind of easy to draw a lot of. Also, since like everything has to be animated.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You definitely want to make sure that you have character designs and a style that's going to be easy to replicate over a long period of time. That's something that a lot of modern cartoon shows kind of get criticized for is having overly complex designs that are really hard to animate. So episodes take longer to come out. They're more expensive to produce, higher chance of the show being canceled. So especially when you're looking at an indie project, you really got to have a good understanding of what you can do over a long period of time to make sure you can still finish the project. So I think you've definitely got a good understanding of that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess it's just kind of what I originally I just drew in that style, like the mock-up that I mentioned, and I just stuck with it afterwards. So yeah.
That makes sense. So, do you and Magpie Tea House have any new games in development? I know there have been some teasers that have been put out on Twitter, but is there anything that you can talk about?
Well, yeah, this game that was mentioned on Twitter, we are developing, but it's slightly like a bit on hold for now. Like we're not canceling it, at least. Well, as far as we have talked, but yeah, just our programmer, he was really busy with like real life recently, so we kind of put it on hold. Yeah, but there are some ideas that we have with like other team members. So yeah, we might be like working on something soon, I suppose.
All right, well, we'll definitely
Yeah,
be keeping an eye out for that then.
yeah. We just finished our game for the Touhou Station Jam, so look out for that as well.
Ah, indeed, yes.
Yeah,
Definitely keep
well,
an
I
eye out for
suppose
that.
by the time this episode goes up, it will be already out. So let's give it a try.
Sure, for sure. I'll make sure we put a link to that in the description when it's out. All right, so as we went over, you are the score composer for Magpie Tea House. When did you get your start in music production, and do you have any formal training?
Yes, I did actually study piano, and also I played in a band. So I had some like experience with brass instruments, and well, with drum set. So yeah, I do have some experience, and my work is related to music as well. But yeah, composing music was another thing that I was always kind of interested in since I was a kid. But I always kind of like assumed that I had like no ability to do it. That I just can't do it because whenever I tried, like nothing good came out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but about 4 years ago, exactly, it was like the end of August 2018. So yeah, 4 years ago, I just decided, I don't know, just started trying to make some short tunes, and I started to like what was coming out. So I kept at it, and like eventually, like my tunes became longer and more interesting. So for about a year and a half, I was just making original music, and then funnily enough, again, it was Satori's theme that I decided to arrange because once again, I was just imagining like this kind of like old timey point and click game with this like with Satori's theme arranged. So I tried to actually do it, and my first Touhou arrange was called Cheating Detective Satori. It was just like a short arrange of Satori's theme.
Yeah, and it worked out really well. I can definitely see how there's a lot of difference in skill between performing music and composing. I myself was classically trained for about
Hmm.
14 years in piano, and
Oh wow.
you wouldn't think so based on my low skill in piano, but I was formally trained.
To be honest, yeah, I kind of lost some of my piano skills as
Yeah.
well. Like, 'cause you get rusty when you don't use it like every day.
Yeah, you got to use it or you lose it.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a long time, I even with an extensive amount of training in performing piano, I had no experience in composing music. Even when I started taking composition classes,
Hmm.
about 12 years into my musical career, like it was so basic. I struggled to write even like 4 chord progressions because I really think they're just completely different skills. And even today, I still think that most of my skill that I have left lies more in the performance side than on the composition side. Um, but of course, you can train both. I just think they're very different skills. So being able to both perform and compose is really an impressive feat, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I guess like yeah. They I guess yeah. There are different skills in that. Like they require different skill sets and stuff. But well, maybe you should give it a try sometime too. Who knows?
Hmm, maybe I should.
Maybe something comes out.
Definitely, since it's been a little while since I've been able to play piano because of a hand injury I got a few years ago. So,
Oh.
but it is healing. So, yeah, there may be a chance when I can get back to both playing and maybe I'll get into composition while I'm waiting for that. So, since I'm sure that the audience is really curious to know, what are some of the essential tools you use in your music production toolkit?
Oh well, to be honest, I don't think I use like really anything out of the ordinary. Just I have some. Uh, well, I wouldn't even call them like visual synths. They're like just some programs like that. I just took some of the default programs and like tweaked with them until I like the sound. So yeah, I'd say that that's pretty much it. Use like I compose music completely digitally. So yeah, I don't use like a MIDI keyboard or anything like
Hmm.
that. So yeah, it's all just mouse and screen.
Hey, that works as well. What digital audio workstation do you use?
Well, I mostly use FL Studio.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid one. I definitely know a lot of producer friends that have gotten their starts and really even made full careers out of FL Studio. It's very popular for a reason.
Yeah, I don't know, just really enjoy it. Like the interface, the like how everything works in there. It's like I don't know, like just works for me. So yeah,
Right.
I mean, basically, if I feel like with a program, as long as like you're comfortable with it, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah. And even me as, an Ableton supremacist, uh, I I do admit that like there are a lot of really intuitive controls in FL Studio for people that are um getting into music because there's like the whole chord selector system that
Mhm.
Ableton has nothing like that. FL
Oh,
Studio is really intuitive for artists who want to just get in and put down their thoughts into music, whereas Ableton I feel is a lot more production oriented. It's a lot more industrial. So Ableton can definitely be really intimidating for artists, but FL Studio is very intuitive and very easy to get into.
yeah, I suppose that's the reason. I just the same goes for Game Maker because like yeah, I really like the like software that is intuitive. So like you don't have to like go somewhere like in some in-depth settings like figure out like just what is going on.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's basically just yeah that you can like oh so that's how it is. Okay, fine. So yeah, I guess yeah that's why I use this kind of software.
Yeah, for sure. And Game Maker definitely has a lot of really intuitive options. I know a lot of people like to criticize it for being limited, but I think when you're a bit more new to computer sciences, it's a lot more approachable than a lot of other game engines. So it can be a really good option. Um, Not even just to start with, but to produce with. I know a lot of people that have made full careers out of making games out of Game Maker. So
Eh, Yeah, I mean Toby Fox comes to mind.
yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about an album you released about 2 years ago, titled Hypothetical Soundtrack. It's an interesting name for sure. So, what was your creative thought process behind the album's production and its title?
Well, it wasn't exactly like an album like like the tracks weren't specifically written for an album. It just as I said, those were like those short tunes that I was composing. Like I just over time I had like quite a collection of them, and like basically I suppose when I am composing a tune, I do kind of like either I already have some kind of image in my mind, or I just go completely like blank and see what what will turn out. And like basically I named those tracks after the impression that they gave me. Like, and it is called hypothetical soundtrack because like it is basically like kind of like short themes that can be used in like, for example, like a cartoon or a video game or something like this. Like for what kind of moods they can be used, like what kind of scenes they can be used, what kind of characters. So that's why it is called like it's a soundtrack for like a hypothetical game, cartoon, you name it.
Yeah, I think it works really well that way because listening to the album myself, or I suppose the series of tracks, listening to the tracks myself, it does kind of bring to mind a lot of images of a game that doesn't really exist. You can kind of almost feel a story, you can feel an environment, but it's not really there. It's like, it's whatever your brain interprets it to be, which I think is really neat. So it does feel kind of like the Ghost soundtrack for a game. So yeah, I think it would work really well as the soundtrack or even just on its own.
Yeah, I suppose that like maybe if like eventually I get to making like original games, I would like to put some of like these tracks into there because like as I said, like it's basically just some like ideas, basically like not full ideas, just some like impressions that can be used somewhere, I suppose. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we've mentioned it before in the interview, but you said you're a big fan of sort of this old-timey aesthetic, old-timey things and characters, which is definitely a motif that shows up a lot in your music. What are some of the ways, some of the compositional techniques you use to create that sort of old-timey feel?
Well, I suppose it's mostly the instrumentation, I suppose, like the kind of instruments you use. Yeah, so yeah, I suppose that's it. And also, I guess like some inspirations from like a more like some kind of like older musical pieces. To be honest, yeah, it's kind of like one of those things again that like I can't really like don't have like a concise answer about because it's like more like like more like some kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Like it either is there or it isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I do also kind of enjoy electronic music, but once again, like more of like a more classical electronic stuff.
Yeah.
Like it is like in some ways probably I don't know if it can be called inspiration or not. It's like just like for example tracks from such composers as Jean-Jacques Perret or Jean-Michel Jarre. So like I guess old French electro.
Yeah. That's sort of foundational electronic music from the 70s and 80s. Yeah. Back when it was a lot more industrial and analog.
Yeah, I do enjoy that like older, like by no means like a super fan of it. So like I probably won't go into like details of like, yeah, he used like this scenes on this album and then he used this scenes on this album. I'm more of like a casual fan that just enjoys the sound and the vibe of it.
And it definitely shows up because it's not even any specific techniques that you copied, but there's this general feel, especially with the track Idole Deus. It's got this really classic sort of synth-wavy style, and sort of you can tell from, and I don't even know if this was your intention or if you were just again following the vibe, but the envelopes of the synthesizers, the way that they kind of bend and pitch just a little bit when they play, is very, very much in the style of Jean-Jacques Perret. So I think you did a really good job of replicating that, whether it was intentional or not. It definitely really follows that style.
Thank you. Yeah, I did try to go with like like I guess more like 80s, like something like this. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely retro synthwave is probably what I would describe that as.
Yeah, that is the feeling that I was going to. So yeah, thank you. I'm really glad that I managed to get it across.
Yeah, I'm sure some nerd who has memorized the entirety of Ishgir's history of electronic music. I'm sure somebody would probably know the exact genre, 70s French electro pop, something like that. But for me, it just sounds like synthwave, and it's really great because that's one of my favorite genres of music. So
Yeah, to be honest, same, because like when I sometimes like you take a look at like different genres and subgenres, and you're just like, whoa.
yeah.
I didn't know it.
If you've never had a chance to look through Ishkur's Guide to Electronic Music, I've got to send you the link at some point because it is incredible. It starts from the absolute stone age of electronic music all the way up to the modern day with examples, and you can see how it branches into so many different genres and subgenres. Like watching, when I found out that there are like 7 different kinds of Eurobeat, it blew my mind. Oh, it's crazy.
That does sound interesting. So I guess it's worth checking out.
Yeah, I'll put a link to it in the video description because it's amazing.
Yeah, Eurobeat is one of the genres that, to be honest, I kind of don't know how to do, because like I don't know, like maybe is it like this the synth or what? Like I, to be honest, haven't like I can't even like begin to wrap in my head around how you do Eurobeat.
It's got a really unique like sort of electric keyboard sound to it, and I have never figured it out either. I would love to because I love that genre, but I have never figured it out.
Yeah.
So a lot of the other songs that you've composed kind of have this jazz and swing kind of feel to them. In what ways has jazz influenced your style, and have you ever studied any jazz theory?
Well, I did not study theory per se, but well, as I mentioned, I did play in a brass band. I was playing euphonium. Well, it was so we did play some jazz there as well. So I guess kind of like from the player experience, you kind of like, as you play music, you kind of get some like general idea of what it's like. Like basically, you still analyze it in some way or form. So I guess that's like what I like base my idea of jazz around, and like basically some also like older styles of jazz, I suppose. To be honest, my favorite type of jazz is probably like kind of like jazz's predecessor, Dixieland.
Yeah,
it's I do like Dixielands quite a lot.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and I remember I used to do band when I was in, I believe, middle school and early high school. I also played the euphonium, so I can definitely see sort of the skills that you would learn from that, and from just playing in the brass section in general. You sort of kind of get a feel for that swing and jazz a little bit better.
Yeah.
All right, so I do think we have some time to go over some questions regarding the Touhou project itself. So, as a fan of the series, what are your thoughts on the official Bullet Hell games? Do you have any one credit clears?
Yeah, I do, but like to my shame, only on easy modo. Yeah.
Oh, it's fine. Easy modo. Nobody in my comment section is going to be bringing up a 15-year-old joke to make fun of you. Like,
I really hope so. Yeah, basically, like I did get into Touhou like basically a bit earlier before I started making music. It was summer of 2018. Yeah, so, and the first game I played wasn't actually the Bullet Hell, it was Antinomy of Common Flowers that I liked a lot. It was like a big impression on me, just like how vibrant like the menu looked, like all the colors, and just, I don't know, the music was great, the sprites were nice. I loved basically everything about this game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was like the first game I played, it was like in autumn after I got like more acquainted with Touhou project. And about the Bullet Hell games, it was like only like a year later that I played my first mainline game. It was A Hidden Star in Four Seasons, and then it was Legacy of Lunatic Kingdom. Which I did get through on easy, but I did.
Congrats.
I even like, okay, like a bit of brag. I get to Hecadia on extra and immediately lost to her, and that was it. I don't think I tried extra after this.
Yeah, no, the Touhou 15 extra is a nightmare and a half. So
yeah, it was an experience.
Yeah, Antinomy is a really approachable game for people that want to get into the series, and it's usually one that I recommend as well because it wasn't the first game I got into, but it is the game that got me back into the series because when I first was getting into Touhou Project, and I was like, oh, I should actually play the games, type online what game to start with, and everyone and their mom says the Touhou 6 Embodiment of Scarlet Devil. So I try it, and I'm like, wow, this game sucks. I hate Touhou. So I didn't play any other games for a little while after that. But then Antinomy came out, and I saw some really good stuff about it online. I'm like, oh, it's a fighting game. I like fighting games. So I got into that, and then from there, I got into other bullet hell games and really got more into playing the games. Because up until that point, I only was into Touhou for the print works and the music. But yeah, Antinomy kind of refreshed that foul taste I had in my mouth after Touhou 6. So
yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's kind of like the same way to me, because like I started to I got into Touhou through original print works actually.
Oh really?
Yeah, just it was actually kind of like a really funny story because I had like a really basically I wouldn't even say that I had a vague idea of like what Touhou is. I assumed it was some kind of like some Vocaloid kind of thing.
Yeah.
For a while because of like the covers of Bad Apple that I saw. I was just like, it's some kind of Vocaloid song, I suppose. Yeah, so then it was like July 4th, and I saw a lot of like Art of Clown piece tagged Touhou, and I was like, huh. Yeah, and around the same time, I also saw an Art of Murasa, also tagged as Touhou, and I was like, okay, so the sailor and the clown, they're both Touhou. Just what is this Touhou?
Exactly. It's like, wait, these two things are in the same. What's going on?
Yeah, so I kind of and then I saw a post that was like a brief introduction to Touhou, and I was like, okay, interesting. I'll give it a look. So I decided to try from fun anime because I was like, okay, anime is it's easy. You just like watch it and like that's it. But yeah, I tried watching Memories of Phantasm and I didn't get anything. Like who are these characters? What's going on? What are they talking about?
Yeah, Memories of Phantasm. I don't think a lot of people realize that Memory of Phantasm does kind of rely on a lot of like things you already know about the series. Like there are a lot of characters that show up in there just for like a few seconds as cameos, kind of as a fan service to people that know the games. But if you're just watching it, you're like, why are these characters here? What are they doing? Who are they? Why are they gone in like 2 seconds? So, it isn't really too bad of a thing, but like I can definitely see how it'd be hard to get through for someone that's not familiar with the series.
Yeah, I used to think that like Scarlet Devil Mansion had 3 vampires because like, hey, who's the red hair vampire?
Yeah.
So yeah, like why isn't she mentioned anywhere?
I mean, she's a devil, so close enough. Memories of Phantasm is kind of controversial as a way to get fans in the series. I personally don't think it's too bad because the things that it's different about from the canon aren't too much of a big deal. Like even, I'm saying this as like a massive nerd of the lore and the canon of Touhou. It's what my whole channel's about. And I really don't think the differences between that and the official series are that drastic. And I think really the changes they make are good for it being an anime. Like the way that they rewrote Flander to be a more deep and well-rounded character. Because especially at that time, we had almost no canon information of Flander. Most of what we've gotten have been since Foul Detective Satori and 17.5. So I guess that's a 17.5 spoiler. Sorry, Flander's in that game. Sorry, spoiler. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess it does like a good job in that regard. It's like even if they like a first time person who has no experience with Touhou, it can like at least makes you like question like what's going on and like want to go deeper into like the official works.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, it should be thought of as a stepping stone and not the be all end all.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Yeah, so yeah, after that I looked up the list of Touhou mangas and I obviously there was like no reading order, so I just picked the one that was like the early release, and it was the first fairy manga. So I went through the fairy manga, then Silent Sinner in Blue, Wild and Her Hermit, and finally Forbidden Scrollery. That was I think all the series at the time, and like Yeah, but by the time I was finishing Forbidden Scrollery, I already had Raymond Enderoid ordered.
Incredible. Yeah, there's a lot to love with
Yeah.
the Touhou print works. I haven't got through all of those. I read, I think, the first couple of volumes of Forbidden Scroller. I didn't get very far. Wasn't one of my favorites. But I have read Wild and Horn Hermit, which of course I have to mention. I mention on every episode of the podcast. But
It is
very
good
good.
manga.
It's a long read. It definitely is, but I think it's well paced enough that it doesn't feel dense.
Yeah, it was definitely like a real enjoyable experience.
The Buget Shuso, so I guess that'd be Cajun Lunatic Renegade, Silent Center Blue, and some people are gonna be mad at me for saying this, but the Inaba comics as well. All three of those are pretty decent reads as well. I personally, I'm of the opinion that Cajun Lunatic Renegade is kind of a dense read, but I still think it can be enjoyable. The Inaba comics are questionably canon, but I think they're still really fun.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I haven't read those, but yeah, from what I've seen, basically the panels, you can sometimes see other people post online. It definitely does seem like some good chaotic fun.
Oh yeah, it's basically the Sunday Funnies, but with Touhou characters.
Yeah, I guess I should give it a try sometime.
It's definitely a fun one. So, of course, the most classic question on this podcast is, do you have a favorite character? And if so, what makes this character stand out to you from the rest of the cast?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I have like a lot of characters that I like, but yeah, basically, pretty much all of the characters that appear in the games are my favorites of some kind. Yeah, so I suppose like probably I do like the Komeiji sisters quite a lot. Like their contrast, with like Satori being like like a more serious, dignified older sister, and Koichi being like a more like fun, outgoing little sister. It's a really cute dynamic, and like the way they care about each other. Yeah. So I guess it is kind of something that I wanted to do, like get across in the Satori game. Yeah. So also, well, I do like Reimu. I mean, it's not just because she's a protagonist. Just I don't know. She's an interesting character.
Yeah, Reimu's a really easy character to love.
Yeah. Like another like big favorites I'd mention are Yomo and Sakuya. I can't even like exactly tell why, but I do enjoy like their characters quite a lot.
White-haired women.
Yeah, I mean,
I am with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, considering you have a Moko avatar.
Oh yes, Moku and Yomu both excellent.
Yeah, yeah, I do like Moko because she just from the cool, like sheer cool factor.
Yeah,
she's a very cool character.
Yeah, I think all of those characters really have a lot really cool stuff going on for them. And I definitely think there's something really interesting about the way that Zune writes sibling characters, because there are several characters in the series that are pairs of sisters, but they're all written a little bit differently in the way that they interact with each other. Like the Komeiji's definitely, as you mentioned, Koishi's kind of the more goofy, more childish younger sister, while Satori's the one that kind of more runs the mansion, a little bit more responsible. And that really contrasts with like the Origami sisters. Joan is like very much this. She's again the popular, outgoing character, but she's not as childish in the way that Koichi is. And Shion isn't like this more mature older sister or anything. She's more just reserved and shy. So their interactions are similar, but they are also very different because they don't have that sort of maturity difference in the way that Satori and Koichi do. And I think all the other sibling pairs in the game really have their own unique identities, which really, I think, speaks well to Zune's ability to write many different kinds of characters.
Yeah, I guess that definitely is a thing. Yeah, like the different dynamics between characters are. Yeah. I do like John quite a lot as well. Speaking of, I just, to be honest, I like all those like basically characters that like her type of characters who like Uh, basically, kind of like lovable egoists.
Yeah. She's such a little shit, but she's so funny.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really good like kind of character.
For sure. All right, so we do have a little bit of time left to go over some of the questions from our very own Hifuu community. So Megapig9001 asks, in Reach for the Moon Eternal Smoke, you remixed the same song multiple times and still made a different version of each one sound distinct. How challenging was this?
Well, to be honest, I wouldn't say too challenging, I suppose. Yeah, because like I did kind of have some idea of what I was going to do. So basically, what I did, I just transcribed the song on just like using the like piano tool. Well, not like tool, piano plugin. And then I just like basically it's the same chord progression, the same melody. So I just use different instruments for it, and like uh, also like different bridge for every version. But yeah, so basically that was it. It just mostly in the instruments used, I suppose, and also like the keys. So like funnily enough, the only one in the original key is the stage of the theme of the third stage, the space one. The rest are in different keys. So that was also like helpful to make the music vary.
Yeah, and key changes are an interesting way to do it because the way that we do 12-tone tuning in like digital instruments and pianos and most instruments now, all keys are essentially the same. Like the differences between each note mathematically is the same in every key. But when you put different keys next to each other, like in a longer composition piece, they suddenly start to take on a personality. Like if you do a key change from a C major key to a B flat major key, the quality of that is different than if you had gone to like an E flat major key. So the qualities are different, not because the keys themselves are any different. They're all essentially the same, just in different starting points. But when they're paired next to the key that you start in, they take on wildly different personalities. Generally, a key shift down makes a more mellow tone. A key shift up makes a more tense tone, things like that. So in a longer work, like in a video game or an entire, symphony, like you can really feel those key changes as it goes on, and you can use that as a creative tool, which I think is really interesting. You don't get to see a whole lot of in video games. I definitely think, as you mentioned, Toby Fox definitely did a lot of work with leitmotif and using key changes in that way. But it's something I would like to see a little bit more of.
Yeah, that definitely is. And like, yeah, as you mentioned, the different keys definitely like set up different moods. Like they just like make the melody like completely unrecognizable sometimes.
Yeah. All right, so next question comes to us from Finitex, who asks, let's go, Baru! What's your favorite game to make so far? Any plans for future works?
Well, yeah, we do have plans. And well, to be honest, I did enjoy working on the story games, so that's it. And also, like, to be honest, I'd say they were all fun, but in different ways. So yeah, and yeah, we do have plans. Like as I mentioned, we have like a kind of suspended project for now, and also some other plans that we might get around to. So yeah, definitely would like to make something, something new. I definitely do have ideas. So, but you know how it is. Like so many ideas, I have to pick just one.
So little
for
time.
now. Yeah. Oh,
well, we'll definitely keep an eye out for that then.
Yeah, thank you.
So I do believe that is about all the time we have for this episode, but before we take it out, would you like to tell the audience where they can find your content?
Yeah, so, well, the best place is, of course, our itch.io page. It's MagpieTeahouse. Also, our Twitter by the same name. We recently have started a YouTube channel where I have uploaded some of our previous soundtracks, and I plan to keep uploading them, the new ones as well. And also my SoundCloud, which is, well, I guess I'll have to link it.
All right. And as always, links to all of that will be in the video description. So thank you for joining me tonight. It's been a really great honor to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was really interesting and fun.
Yeah, it was fun. So as a reminder for the audience, we will be back on the 1st of October with a new featured creator. So until then, please wait warmly. The intro to the Hifuu Community Club is Aquasphere by Mondorium. There's a link to their official YouTube channel in the video description. So always remember to please, please, please treat the artists in the Touhou community with respect. They do so much for us, so make sure to credit art and music. And remember that you can always support artists through commissions, prints, views, shares, and album downloads. So thank you for tuning into the Hifuu Community Club, and to all, have a pleasant evening.